Okay, so I got a question about this question right here. This is question number 13 on page 64, 1.13. So it shows an ogive of all this data, and this is the amount spent by grocery shoppers. And this data was actually, it's an ogive of the amount spent from exercise 1.6 back on page 48. Is way back here. So 1.6 is shopping spree, and there's 50 data points. Thank you very much, authors, for that long list. But it does say that you can round each number to the nearest dollar, so that's what I did. Okay, so I first started by using L1 on my calculator, and I entered, yes, actually all 50 data points. That took a while. But I also kind of cheated because I did round to the nearest dollar because that's what they did right here. Okay. Question A, it says estimate the center of the distribution, explain your method. So these ogives are super, super cool. I didn't show you how to make them, but really all you need to know is how to read them. And reading an ogive is super cool because they're also called relative cumulative frequency plots. So on the vertical axis, the y-axis, instead of frequency, which is counts, and instead of relative frequency, which is percentages, this is the relative cumulative frequency. So it is percentages, but it's all of the data is assumed to be 100%. So it's the percentage of the total within that data set, within that sample. Okay, so it's kind of like if you just think about like a segmented bar graph, it's the same kind of thinking as that, or a pie chart, where the entire pie is 100% of the data. The entire segmented bar graphs, the entire bar is 100% of the data. Okay, this is the same type of thing, the same type of thinking. Okay, so what you do is, and I never recommend students to write in the book, but I'm going to break that rule and write in the book. Okay, very, very lightly though, because we have to erase it. So it says, where is the center of this distribution? I'm just going to use the 50th percentile. So put a ruler there and try to make the ruler as, as horizontal as you can. And just very, very lightly, okay, make a little line that goes from the 50% to the ogive, and then drop a vertical from there. Okay, as best as you can, just try to drop a vertical. So try to make something that is roughly vertical. And this is a lot easier with a ruler that is see-through, because it's easier to make it, kind of line up. Okay, so as close as I can estimate, the amount spent is just under $30, so maybe $29. So the center of this distribution, I would say, is roughly $29. Okay. B, what is the relative cumulative frequency for the shopper who spent $17? So now you do the opposite. You just go to $17, 15, 16, 17. You make a kind of vertical line there. Then you come across and you go, that looks like about the 20th percentile. So the person who spent $17 spent more than about 20% of the rest of the sample. Okay, so that's how you do A and B. How would you find the IQR, by the way? I know that's not one of the questions, but how would you find the IQR? Just go to the 75th percentile, figure out what that value is, go to the 25th percentile, figure out what that value is, and then just do Q3 minus Q1. So I love ogives because they're super easy to read. Okay. C, draw the histogram that corresponds to the ogive. Okay. So to do a histogram, what we're going to do is in our calculator, I'm going to go ahead and make I'm going to do it on the calculator first, because that was also a question, was how do we do a histogram on the calculator? So I've made my list L1, and L2 I don't even need. L2 was in there previously. So I'm going to go to L2 and I'm actually going to erase it. So to erase an entire list, okay, what I do is I hover over L2, and notice at the bottom it is selecting the entire L2, right? And I don't want to press delete, because if I press delete, it'll delete the list. So L2 will no longer exist unless I create it again. I don't want to delete, I want to clear the list. So now I just go to the clear button, I press clear, and then it asks us to kind of two-step verification. Are you sure you want to clear it? Yes. Press enter. Okay, now my L2 is clear. Okay. Anyways, Now I want to make a histogram of L1. All of our graphs live in stat plot, which is above the y equals. So it's blue, so I'm going to use the second function, this blue key. So second stat plot. And notice that there's 4 plots here. Number 1 plot is turned on, 2, 3, and 4 are turned off. I don't want 2, 3, and 4. I just want one graph. I'm not comparing 2 different graphs. I just want one graph. So I press enter to get into plot 1. It's on, that's good. Okay, and there's 6 graphs I can choose from. What I want to choose is the third one over that looks like a histogram because I'm making a histogram. Boom, boom, boom. So I press enter. Okay, and now it's asking me, well, where is my list of my data for the x-axis, right? My x list. Well, I already uploaded that into L1, okay? And so it just defaults to L1, so I leave it at L1. Well, what is the frequency that I want to use? I'm just going to use frequencies of 1, okay? Frequencies of 1, okay? So I just leave that as is, I press enter, and I'm good. Now, how do I actually see the graph? To see the graph, I'm going to use one of these keys up top here, okay? And you can trace, you can use trace, you can use graph, or you can use zoom. You can change your window settings with window. Okay, AP Calculus students, you're probably used to using graph or trace. In this class, most of the time, we're just going to use the zoom and zoom stat. So press the zoom button, okay? And something went wrong there, sorry. Press zoom. Zoom, sorry, not sure why I was doing that. It was, I think because I was down here and I was pressing zoom, it didn't like that. So I went up to on and just pressed zoom. Those are all my zoom options. And I'm gonna use option number 9, okay, which is actually just zoom stat, okay? Option number 9, you don't have to, you can space all the way down to it and just press enter, or just from zoom, you can just press number 9, okay? Zoom stat. And oh, I have an error, okay? So I could see for a split second, I could see the histogram, but now I have an error. Hey guys, welcome back. Sorry about that. In the last video, I was trying to make a histogram and it kept throwing an error at me. And so if it does that, if you're graphing something and you press zoom stat, and it goes error, what you want to do is check your stat plots. Okay, and make sure all of them are off except for just one. Okay, so that was fine. But then also go to your y list, y equals. Okay, and somebody had put there was a symbol in y1 is equal to something, and it wasn't a numerical symbol, and so it was reading it as an error. What these are different ways of plotting as well. So if you were to put like y equals 1, that would just be the line, the horizontal line at y equals 1. So now when I zoom stat it, it's going to show my histogram, but it also is drawing this line at y equals 1. Okay, so what I can do is just go here and just clear that and make sure nothing's in there. So now when I zoom stat it, all I see is my histogram. So that is how to make a histogram, and also how to troubleshoot graphing on your calculator if something's not working right. Okay, so how would you describe this data? Shape, center, spread, and outliers. Shape is unimodal. Shape is also skewed to the right. Okay, and then you could talk about center, spread, and outliers more specifically by going to, now stat edit is my list of 50 data points. So if I want to know specifically what is my center and my spread, okay, I can just do a one variable statistics, okay, statistical summary. Okay, so to do that, I'm just going to go stat calc one var stat. So it's stat, then go to calc, and then it's one variable statistics, one var stat. Okay, and I'm going to go to L1, and I'm just going to calculate. And there is my summary statistics. So I would say that my mean, my sample mean is at 34.68, and my standard deviation, remember we're using SX for sample standard deviation, where it divides the numerator, or the denominator is n minus 1. So my standard deviation is 21.6827. Okay, and I'm just going to round or truncate. Okay, I'm going to give 4 digits after the decimal place. Okay, and that's pretty standard, is to use 4 digits. Okay, but the text might tell you how many digits to round to. Okay. Also, if I wanted to use the 5-number summary, if I wanted to use median and IQR, I could simply report that the median is at 28 and the IQR is just to 45 minus 19, so that'd be 26. Okay, my IQR is Q3 minus Q1. All right, so that is C. Draw the histogram that corresponds to the ogive. That's how you do it on your calculator. Okay.